Mellow Fellows, it's Tara here, and today we're talking about one of the most relatable teachers at Wagstaff, Ms.Labonz. She is beauty, she is grace, be careful or she'll slap you in the face. Ms.Labonz is a middle-aged 4th grade teacher at Wagstaff. She is an authoritative and respected teacher at school and is often used as a threat to the kids. Almost like a bouncer. She enforces basic school rules and does take her role as a teacher seriously. She is not exactly the most ethical teacher, but she does get the job done regardless. Ms.Labonz's first appearance is in a flashback sequence in the first episode, Human Flesh. In this episode, Louise started rumors that her family sells human meat in her show and tell presentation. Later in the episode, Labonz appears in the angry mob outside of Bob's restaurant. But that was her first physical appearance. Ms.Labonz first spoke in the episode Lobster Fest, where she is teaching her class about lobsters in the preparation for Lobster Festival. Louise asks to skip class or be given an A because she claims her family does not observe Lobster Fest and she should be exempt from class. Of course, Ms.Labonz says no and is later seen in a crowd at Lobster Fest. If you notice, her voice is different in this episode. It is clear and sounds more like an average adult woman. Well, as average as a woman played by a guy can sound, which is surprisingly common in Bob's Burgers for some reason. The point is, her voice is different from how it is now. The theory is that her voice got deeper over the course of the show because of her smoking habit. Now she has a deeper, raspier voice that you would expect from a smoker. I personally like the sound of her voice now. It makes her voice more distinguishable. It also seems that Ms.Labonz has quite a few friends at work. She is shown to have Margarita Tuesdays with Mr. Ambrose, Mr. Bronca, and the gym teacher, Coach Blevins. This suggests that they all hang out often after work. We don't know a lot about the Wagstaff teachers outside a school setting, but from what we could piece together, they seem like they have fun together. I know for a fact that they drink, complain, and get into wildly inappropriate conversations. The only faculty member that she seems to openly dislike is Mr. Frond. I don't believe it's for a specific reason. Maybe she just finds him annoying. Whatever the reason is, she and the other teachers exclude him from margarita nights. I do feel bad for Mr. Frond sometimes. Mr. Frond is scared of her, but at the same time he wants to be her friend. Yes, he doesn't drink, but that doesn't mean he can't hang out with them and have a non-alcoholic margarita. I'm not a big drinker either, and there's always a good alternative to drinking. But like I said, I think it's more about him being kind of a killjoy and not being a great person to hang out with on the fun meter. The point I was trying to make is Ms.Labonz is probably a lot more fun to her adult peers than she is to her students. I mean, any woman who enjoys firemen and goes to pickles on a regular is a woman of culture. She even says herself that her weekend persona is loose, and I'd gladly hang out with her. The lady deserves some fun after hanging out with a bunch of 4th graders for most of the week. As we found out recently, Ms.Labonz has actually been at Wagstaff for a long time. She has had all 3 of the Belcher children, Tina, Jean, and currently Louise, as students. Having Louise as a student is a challenge within itself. Louise is known for her constant pranks and antics that would drive any teacher up the wall. Louise is hilarious, but she is also very disruptive in class, and Ms.Labonz has to deal with the majority of the chaos. Well, her and Mr. Frond. So I can't blame her for being stricter at times. We already seen what happens if Louise is given a pushover like Teddy or Jen to watch after her. She manipulates them into letting her do whatever she wants, and even Mr. Frond falls for her tricks sometimes. However, with Ms.Labonz, Louise usually doesn't get her way. For example, she wasn't going to give the Barobu cards back just because Louise was upset that she took them away. In fact, she made it very clear that she intended to clean up dog poop with them, just because she could. Now, while this is pretty harsh and a little overboard, the situation was completely avoidable. Ms.Labonz made it very clear to everyone that she would take away any Barobu cards she sees in her class. For context, the kids have been trading cards non-stop and she was tired of it disrupting her class. So in her defense, she warned Louise plenty of times not to bring them. However, Louise disregarded that and did it anyway, resulting in her cards being taken away as a consequence, along with Rudy's, Andy's, and Ollie's. Bob even agreed that it was her own fault she got him taken away and she can't blame Tina for her actions. I mean, you can argue that Tina shouldn't have told on her sister, but at the end of the day, it was still Louise's fault for breaking the rules and using her sister as a cover, who happens to be the worst liar ever. There were also a lot more to that episode, and the theme is more about Tina and Louise's broken trust. However, this video is about Ms.Labonz. And even though she was the antagonist of that episode, I think that her actions were mostly justified. She could have been nicer about it, but Louise did disobey the rules and then plotted to steal the cards out of her house, which is trespassing, so I'll call it even. I hope this doesn't sound like I don't like Louise. I love that she's a menace. Plus, she's 9. I don't really hold her to this high moral standard like I would an adult. Plus, she learned her lesson at the end and did the right thing by the end of the episode. I also acknowledge that Louise does talk to Ms.Labonz with more respect than, say, Mr. Franz, so on some level, she does respect her more than the average adult, which says something. I love Louise, but like I said, she is a menace. Like I said, Ms.Labonz is usually the one who sends her to the principal's office when she misbehaves, which is pretty much all the time. Ms.Labonz is only tough when she wants to be. If she doesn't care about the situation, she will let it slide. For example, she doesn't care when Louise took over the school for a day because she benefited from the situation. Why wouldn't she? She's an overworked, underpaid elementary school teacher for a public school. She deserves some wins. Besides being a teacher, she also takes over other roles at Wagstaff. In the episode Gene and On, Mr. Ambrose mentions that Ms.Labonz oversees the school's drama program. She is later seen doing this in the episode Work Hard or Die Trying Girl, where she is giving students the opportunity to show her ideas for the fall musical. She did this because she refused to do Grease again. She ends up picking Courtney's Working Girl musical after Doug promises that Carly Simon would attend if they did the musical. Yes, she accepted a bribe basically, and I don't blame her. She was so excited to meet Carly Simon that she wore a tour shirt and reserved a seat for Carly. When Carly Simon failed to show up, she slapped Doug for lying, as she should. If you're going to bribe someone, at least have the decency to go through with your promise. A bribe is a bribe. Ms.Labonz also did the morning announcements. For a long time, she did them by herself, often boring the kids with her unenthusiastic voice. That was until the episode The Gene and Courtney Show. In this episode, the second half of her morning announcements got replaced by Gene and Courtney doing jingles. Remember when I said she's not the most ethical? Yeah, this episode shows that side of her best. She felt hurt that her segment was shortened and took it out on Gene and Courtney. She went as far as harassing them and attempted to sabotage their announcements. She even tried to compete by doing her own jingles with the help of Miss Merkins on bongos. At the end of the episode, she ended up admitting that Gene and Courtney did a good job and congratulated them. It definitely wasn't her finest moments, but it was one of her funniest. Not to mention the time that her and the other teachers stole money from the school to fund their coffee habits. I mean, I don't blame her. Working as a teacher is hard. I guess she really wanted her caramel macchiato. But it wasn't just her, it was also Mr. Ambrose and it was also Mr. Franz, so it wasn't just her, but they all did steal funds from the school to fund their coffee. But it's okay because at the end of the episode, they came up with money to help repay those funds and send the kids to the water park. So I guess it was a wash. Now I've been talking about her roles at Wagstaff. Nothing shows this better than the newer episode, Touch of Evaluation in Season 12. This episode explores the dynamic between Ms.Labonz and Louise. It is a great episode in my opinion, and it gives us more insight into Ms.Labonz as a teacher. When the kids come into school, they notice that the teachers are being unusually nice to the students. Come to find out that Mr. Franz came up with an idea called Teacher Evaluations, where the student rates the teachers and the teacher with the best scores could win a reserved parking spot. Once Louise realized the power that came with this, she convinced the other students to take advantage of the situation. All the students started to do whatever they want and practically took over school for exchange for good reviews. Most of the teachers have had to park far away in the unpaved overflow lot, so they all went along to get that free parking spot. Ms.Labonz was especially desperate because she's older and she literally has to put on sneakers to walk to her car. At the end of the day, most of the kids gave their teachers good reviews and turned it in. However, Louise wasn't done yet. She indirectly told Ms.Labonz that if she changed her grade on a bad project she did, then she would give Ms.Labonz a good evaluation. Ms.Labonz refused because she didn't want to reward Louise for lazy behavior. Keep in mind that she let Louise get away with a lot that day for the parking spot, but the one thing she wouldn't do is compromise her integrity as an educator. Louise did not take this well at all and wrote a scathing evaluation, even going as far as calling her the Antichrist. Louise turned in her evaluation to Mr. Frond and went to meet up with Jean and Tina. They were all talking about the evaluation, and Louise told them what she wrote. Tina told her that she may have gone too far and was way harsher than she needed to be. After realizing that hearing the evaluation will hurt Ms.Labonz's feelings, she tries to take the paper back, but it didn't work. She ended up going on the intercom and told Mr. Frond over the loudspeakers to disregard her review. She went on to say what she actually thinks of Ms.Labonz and says she is a good teacher. She even moved Ms.Labonz to tears, showing that Louise's words meant a lot to her. At the end of the episode, we see that Ms.Labonz won the parking spot and thanked Louise for her review. What I liked most about this episode is that it shows Ms.Labonz's integrity as a teacher. Louise believes Ms.Labonz has it out for her, and she has a general dislike towards teachers and authority figures. She doesn't see teachers as people, which is pretty normal for kids. She kind of believes that she is Robin Hood in a sense, fighting for kids against adults. Honestly, she would be a perfect member of the kids next door. So from her perspective, she thinks that Ms.Labonz grades her unfairly because she does not like Louise. Again, she believes she's being targeted in a way. However, this is just not the case. Louise is a naive 9-year-old girl. Of course, she sees things in black and white. She even believes that teachers are rich and powerful somehow. Even though Ms.Labonz admitted that she grades Louise more harshly, it wasn't for the reasons that Louise thought it was. Ms.Labonz is the type of teacher that grades based on the student's potential rather than a universal scale. For example, if it was Andy or Ollie, she would have taken into account that they're unique and not all there. She wouldn't grade them as harshly. However, Louise is a mastermind. She's always coming up with schemes and solutions to problems. Louise is a smart girl, and Ms.Labonz know this. So when Louise turned in a project that took her less than a minute to do, it made sense why Ms.Labonz gave her a C. And in my opinion, C is still generous for a cotton ball glued in a shoebox. Ms.Labonz gave Louise a C because she believes in her. She believes she is smart, but likes to take the easy way out instead of doing actual work. She thinks Louise doesn't try, and she phones it in. Ms.Labonz believes Louise is a very bright kid, so she pushes her to do more. She sees her potential and won't let her waste it. Ms.Labonz said herself that she noticed that vengeance and anger is usually what motivates Louise to do something, and she was right. And it worked because Louise worked harder on her next project out of spite and got an A. Ms.Labonz would rather get a bad evaluation and lose her chance at a parking spot than give in to Louise's bribe and change her grade. To me, that's admirable and shows that she does take her job as a teacher seriously. This episode also shows that Louise does care about Ms.Labonz and didn't want to hurt her feelings for vengeance. It was a sweet episode and does a good job adding context to existing characters. Ms.Labonz is grumpy and a bit rough, however she is a softie when you get to know her. She can be abrasive or chill. She could be non-ethical at times but still has integrity. She's witty, prone to violence, and loves her caramel macchiatos. She is a woman who has a habit of stealing supplies from school and is a great dip and chips player. She's also all these things and more. This is a love letter to our favorite 4th grade teacher, Ms.Labonz. May her coffees always be hot and may her margaritas always be cold. We love you, Ms.Labonz. Never change. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!